Yo, welcome to the NS9 Postgame Show. I'm your host, Anthony DiNardo. With me, we have Connor. We have
Why'd you say
another
it so?
Pirates victory.
You said it with such ominous. You said my name very ominously. I'm in a good mood today, man. Pirates win. My MRI was clean, so I'm cancer-free for now. So
Big W today.
Big W's on a lot of different fronts today. Lots to talk about. Interesting game.
It really was. Today was a good game. The Pirates, first off, they win 7-5. They're coming off the series win against the Cubs, which the Cubs are battling for a playoff spot. They're in the NL Central. It's also away, right? It's in Wrigley. Today, they're in Cincinnati facing the Reds. Also, same situation, right? They're also in the NL Central. They're fighting for a playoff spot. And the Pirates are doing what they need to do right now. They're playing spoiler. And they played.
It's not a Cavs hat.
Bucko Mike, you should know it's not a Cavs hat.
It's a Crawford's hat.
So-called Cavs fan. But for real,
so-called Cavs fan.
The Pirates go in Cincinnati. And it was an entertaining game. Like you said, there was certainly some sloppy play on both sides, right? Both sides for sure. But they come out victorious. They're playing good baseball still.
They're fine. I think the correct way to phrase this one was they found a way to win.
That's a good phrase.
They found a way to win. 4 solo homers. Not a lot going with runners in scoring position, but they did get some across. They found ways to put the ball in play and get what they needed to. The Reynolds Q shot, the Andahar that ended up being a throwing error on Ellie De La Cruz. You know, there was some. You put the ball in play and sometimes just good things will happen, you know, and we saw that with the Reds tonight too.
Yeah.
Was it 4? Hold on, let me check. Yeah, the 3 earned runs off of Ortiz went 3. We'll talk about it later when we get more towards the pitching, but this game is just brutal to Luis Ortiz, who in that 5th inning really got 6 or 7 outs.
He did.
And got tagged for all 3 of those runs earned. Now, he didn't pitch too great tonight. It was more of the same stuff we've been seeing. Not so much the hard contact. That was not really a thing that he was dealing with today. But the control was still exactly the same. But
today, I think it seemed like it was effectively wild for him.
Yeah, it was effectively wild. I wouldn't say that he deserved those 3 earned runs because it came off of 2 choppers, a throwing error by it's not an error, but he should have made the play, and then another chopper that's also you probably should have made the play, but it's you're not going to assume that he does because it's a really tough chopper, and then the Davis. And then Henry Davis slid and came up short for one, which is, I'm just gonna breeze past that one. Not worth getting into that whole. And then he got squeezed. He got squeezed on.
It didn't matter at the end of the day, but it just demonstrates again like the bad defense that Henry Davis has at this point in time, which again isn't really totally his fault. He's learning this on the fly. Blah, blah, blah. We'll say that for the rest of the year when he makes more mistakes in right field. But yeah, just a bad read. He goes backwards. It was clearly short. He starts running up on it, makes the diving attempt, comes up short by catching it. but no big harm in the end. But you're right. I mean, like nothing goes down as errors. When you look at the game, one error today that was Ellie De La Cruz, nothing on the Pirates side, but it was certainly bad defense.
Yeah. I don't know. It was, I mean, it was certainly an entertaining game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also,
I jokingly
Jared
said there was better
Triolo, man.
defense by the fans. I think the fans went 2 for 2 in catching fly balls today.
Yeah,
Like they were doing their part.
yeah, they might. The Davis home run catch was pretty good.
Yeah. So, like I said, they're doing
So,
their part, but like Peguero, there was twice that he just didn't make a good effort, right? Decision making, the throw wasn't well. Even Bryan Hayes, like at the end of the game, throwing a second, didn't get the out there. I mean, there's a lot of times where the defensive play was made, right? Peguero made the play defensively, got the ball platform and doing that, right? But then, like, bad throw to first one time, a weak, soft throw to second the first time, which is kind of like the Bryan Hayes situation at the end. Like, we got that ball at third, just kind of softly tossed it to second, which then you got a guy in first and second, no outs. So there's a lot of that going on. Like nothing going down in the box score as an error, but certainly sloppy defensive plays on the Pirates. And again, the Reds, as mentioned.
and Andahar too. I mean, not that it was it. I wouldn't classify that as poor defensive play as much as just Andahar having no range.
Well,
There's
yeah.
really nowhere to. There's really just nowhere to hide him defensively.
Also fair. But yeah, let's get offense. You know, it was going back and forth. Like you talk about the entertaining game, right? I guess we'll first off talk about
6
Andre
different
Jackson.
lead changes.
Yeah, yeah, it was all in the middle innings there. But right, I guess I want to start off with Andre Jackson. Like he was the opener today. I know I've been a big proponent of Andre Jackson as a starter. Let's get away from that. Let's have Andre Jackson one time through the lineup has actually been very, very effective. Today,
Right.
didn't really have
Not
it.
so much.
It is what it is. Like he was all over the place. So that's what set up the game to begin with. You were a little worried today. And on the other side with the Reds, Abbott was pitching fairly effective at the beginning of the game. But again, Andre Jackson gets out. He pitched the 1 inning. I mean, no big damage, right? 1 inning. He had the 2 walks, 2
34
strikes.
pitches, 2 walks. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he gets out of it.
It was
He
just
to do per se. But you want to see better than that. Again, especially since that was a 1 inning outing for him. But then like you mentioned, like Luis Ortiz came in, he was effectively wild, right? He wasn't pitching too well, but obviously the defense wasn't helping him either, right? But as mentioned, 3.2
right.
him. So you're not getting a lot of length, and that's the problem you're having with the bulk guys by doing the opener and this such. Like he only goes 3.2. So your pseudo starter, which took 2 players to pitch, total 4.2 innings. Now granted, the bullpen, which we'll talk to as well, did their job. But yeah, like 5 strikeouts. I mean, that's the thing too. He's been up and down. Like he has 1 outing, he has 0 strikeouts, and today he has 5 strikeouts. You know, I mean, of course, he had like many attempts because the batters kept coming for him in the innings.
It's been more bad than good recently.
It has.
He's put a couple of stinkers together in a row now where it's just like, all right, I think this is probably regression to the mean.
Yep, for sure. But again, you know, we talked the three walks. I mean, he was certainly wild, but he was getting the strike. Like the slider was working for him today. You know, he was getting swing and misses with it. He was able to strike out guys. The defense behind him wasn't helping him. And that's what alluded to the 3 earned runs, right? Made this a close game throughout. But yeah, like the offense, like you mentioned, the offense came about then. Abbott was pitching well until he started looking kind of wild himself. And now, granted, too, how Henry Davis hit that 1 ball. I mean, how up in the zone was that? He got to it and hit it out of the park. That's not really any fault of Abbott. That's kudos to Henry Davis.
Yeah, that's at his shoulders. That pitch
but
is
he
at
had
his
that
shoulders.
big home run today.
It's not quite the pitch that Andahar swung at in St. Louis, but it's pretty close.
it had them vibes. It's like how
It was
that
a
happened.
good. It was a good like 2.5, 3 baseball diameters up out of the zone.
Right. I don't know. Maybe that's the thing. Maybe he needs to stop swinging at strikes and start swinging at those pitches. I don't know, because the other way around ain't working right now.
Yeah,
I mean, he
he
still
just
looks bad.
he looks really bad at the plate, and they're not throwing him the fastball, and until he proves that he can lay off or take the breaking pitch when it's a ball and hit it when it's a strike, at least occasionally, he's not going to see any fastballs. If you can throw your breaking pitch for a strike or at least close to the zone, you have a viable way to get Henry Davis out.
Very much so. Yep. And that's again like 3 more strikeouts today. I mean, it's been strikeout city since his return from the IL stint he had, outside of a few hits that he has. I feel like every game you see a sign where he looks like, okay, maybe this is going to break him out. And then it's negated by, well, like 3 strikeouts today, right? So another plate appearance where he just looks awful. So I don't know really what's up with him. I'm concerned for the rest of the season, not like his career outlook, but this certainly is concerning from Henry Davis.
Well,
the way he looks at the
you
plate.
have competent instruction and a competent philosophy, your 1-1 pick shouldn't struggle.
Not like this, at least. No.
And I know Endy who also had a home run, which was not a cheap shot. That was pretty well struck. He's also been really struggling. Peguero's hit kind of a wall here in the past couple of weeks. I mean, it's the only rookie who's really hitting is Jared Triolo, and we'll get into him a little bit later. But I don't think it's a coincidence that the people who are struggling the most on this team are the people who have only known Andy Haynes and the Pirates hitting philosophy their entire professional careers. Outside of Endy, which is like, that goes back to 2018 when he was in rookie ball, so I don't think that really counts. But it's just
sure, yeah.
It's just it's kind of nonsense that they think that this is still, because all of these guys were having success at one point. All of these guys looked like major leaguers and were hitting major league pitching at one point. And the adjustment period for Peguero, it's kind of getting there, but for Endy and Davis, the adjustment period is kind of dragged on now, where it's just like, all right, time for you to move out of this adjustment period, right?
Yeah, and I feel that. I mean, the rookies are going to struggle, but you're coming to the point now where you want to start seeing that progression again, right? You want to see things start clicking, start coming together.
Right.
With Henry, maybe there's the injury lingering. There's not too many excuses in the sense of like Endy. Henry Davis, like mentioned, you could, maybe he's not fully healthy. I don't know. But again, like the way he played in AAA for that short time there, you would think that's not the case. But at any rate, yeah, you want to see them play a little bit better. But you are right. I mean, Endy crushed that baseball. 431 feet, 105.8 miles per hour exit velocity. I mean, just demolished it. So, I mean, great job by him. And let's also talk about, if we're talking about homers, I mean, Bryan Hayes led off. He had that home run. Now, that was a wall scraper. That wasn't a no-doubter by him.
But however, it was Oppo.
However, we are still talking about Bryan Hayes. And he goes 2 for 4 or 3. Let me look it up. 2 for 4 with a walk and a home run. His OPS is now at 786. Connor, Bryan Hayes, September 22nd, OPS 786.
It's going to pass Sawinski here soon. Sawinski's at 788.
To have a small glimpse, because I know it's a post game. I don't want to talk too much about 2024 and get that aspect, but like,
I mean, it's towards the end of the year. That's kind of inevitable.
Feel a little more at ease about the future and outlook. Like, the reason I was so down on this team this year is because of how bad Brian Reynolds was playing, how bad Bryan Hayes was playing, right? Like the vets, the guys that were here were regressing. The rookies will struggle. It's fine. I get that. But the guys that are here are regressing and not playing well. I'm feeling much more hopeful now. And again, the way Bryan Hayes is playing and consistently still playing makes me feel much more than hopeful. Like, Bryan Hayes is a dude right now. An absolute
He is just
dude.
he won't stop hitting. He refuses to stop hitting. He just refuses to. Every night it's at least one hit, usually multiple.
And we're not even just talking like, okay, he's good for average, right? He gets hits. He's collecting hits. Like the dude is hitting them out of the park. Like the power that we've been talking about, right? When we scream and
Yes.
discuss about exit velocity and his launch angle, like what he needs to do to be a better baseball player, like that is all coming together. And this is
He
why
did it.
there was
He
still a
did
lot of hype.
He did all of the things that, every single little bit of analysis that went into Brian Hayes, it was just very simple. He's hitting the ball extremely hard. He needs to elevate it more, and he needs to stop hitting it the other way so much to tap into that pull side power. And he did it. He's done it, and now he's a good player.
Amazing. And that's what we're talking about.
Amazing.
He is a
staggering
dude now. The power, like he is on a 30 home run like pace right now. Like this isn't just Brian Hayes who's going to maybe hit for 290, which would be amazing, right? And like 12 to 15 home runs. Like this is a guy who's batting like 300 plus, 30 home runs plus. Like this is what we're getting now. Granted, it's still small sample to the degree, right? I'm still under like 40 games of like this torrid stretch. But man, oh man, Brian Hayes is still doing it. Like that's the thing. I don't think like much is going to change from today to the rest of the season. But if he does continue this the rest of the season, I mean, you are looking at like a legit 50-game stretch of Brian Hayes being a total dude. And I can't stop talking about it and being excited about it.
I think we're at this point with him where it's just like he's going to be 26 next year. I think 26, right?
I want to double check because like I want to say yes. But is it 27? No, yeah, he's 26 and a half. So actually, yeah, he'll be 27 in June or January.
So he'll be 27 next year. I think that now is the point where I think he really had to show you something, or you would just like completely give up on him really ever improving, because that's usually about the time where it's, if you're not anything with the bat by 26, your odds of being something are like really low.
Yeah.
So statistically speaking, he really had to show improvement this year, and boy has he. So I think we should be expecting them, and the Pirates should expect themselves to be a playoff team next year. They're a playoff team, in part because of Brian Hayes being the player that he can be, which he doesn't have to be at this level. He just has to be an above average hitter, and he's a damn fine player.
And I don't want to get too, like I said, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself because it's still small. Like I'm not saying we should expect this, but this is Andrew McCutchen level type of play we're talking about. Like that's what Brian Hayes is doing. And if you're hoping for a league average hitter, Brian Hayes, that could get you 3 to 4 and occasionally a 5 WAR season because of that. I don't want people expecting this, but he is playing at Andrew McCutchen.
He's playing in an MVP level.
Right.
He is playing in a manner that will get him MVP votes next year.
What this team lacked is the star power. There's a lot of depth. You were hoping Cruz could be that. We lost the season. We still don't know. And I'm not saying, again, to plug in Key as that guy. But if you get Brian Hayes to be anything near Andrew McCutchen level, that changes everything right now.
It does. It really does. And, Bryan Reynolds, as much as I love him, the level that he's at, if he is your team's best player, unless you have just a very well-rounded team, you're probably pretty mid.
And that's fair.
And that's
why
just the reality of it. Bryan
Reynolds
is a very good player. He is absolutely worth the $100 million they gave him and then some. That contract was well under his market value.
Yep.
That said, if he's your best player, you're probably not a great team. You can be a good team, but not a great one.
For sure. So again, I'm just so elated by Brian Hayes, and he does it every night. And every post game we get to talk about him, and that's such a good vibe right now. That is such a good thing to be doing in September. And again, the Pirates are winning. Like he is a big part of that, and that's what I want to talk about too. So something I want to talk about today is the Palacios quote, and he said, I know I don't know word for word, but more or less he was saying that there was a team meeting, and they talked and they said they want to treat the rest of this year like it's the playoffs. And I loved every bit of that.
I
That is
loved it too.
exactly what I wanted to hear.
It's exactly what I wanted to hear because there hasn't been a whole lot of urgency coming from management. It's certainly not coming from Travis Williams. It's certainly not coming from Bob Nutting, right? And it sure hasn't come from Ben Sherrington largely. Now he did give out some quotes that they expect to compete in 2024 for the playoffs, but that was after Liover Peguero went out and told reporters, hey, we expect to be in that position by this time next year. We expect to be that playoff team. And last time around, I mean, it was the same deal. Ownership wasn't more urgent last time. The general manager was a little less passive, but there wasn't any true urgency to win coming from Huntington either. It came from the players, and it's going to have to come from the players again this time. And so getting guys like Liover Peguero or even just Josh Palacios who just have that fire in them, who are not have the fire in him because that makes it sound like Reynolds and Hayes and McCutchen don't. They do. They're just not the kind of leaders to talk about it. They're not going to. Andrew's not a speech guy. Reynolds
They're
isn't
not the rah-rah leaders.
Yeah, no, Reynolds isn't a big speech guy. That was AJ Burnett. That was, all the guys that you would associate, Travis Snyder, all the guys that you would associate with those teams, those were guys who pressed, the team into competing vocally.
Yep.
The other guys did it with their play alone, but it was, you need those outspoken guys too.
For sure. And for a team, as we talk, like there's not much for this team to play for right now. I mean, they're not in the hunt, right? I loved every bit of it because winning still matters to them. And that's what
It's
when
what I've
after
been
the
saying
trade
all year.
deadline on Starbucks, like Jim and I talked about, like, what do you want to see the rest of the year? And we talked about different guys and whatnot, but winning was a big part of it. Like you have pretty much the core of your 2024 roster on this team right now.
Yeah.
Winning matters. You want to get that mentality. You want them to go out there to try to win baseball games. So to hear Palacios say that, and on top of it, it is what they've been doing since the trade deadline. Like they are a winning baseball team since then, but to still know like it really matters, they care, and they're going to treat this like the playoffs right now. They're beating teams that are fighting for the playoffs right now. Like I love every bit of that quote, and I love that is the mentality this team is carrying right now.
Yeah. Should we talk about the David Ross thing?
I don't really care to. Maybe it's just me. Like, I guess we're talking about it.
Yeah.
Look what you've done.
Sorry.
My point of view on that, what do you want him to say? Like, if I'm a Cubs fan, if I'm a Cubs player, we should be beating the Pirates. We need to be beating teams that are better than the Pirates. If we can't beat the Pirates to get in the playoffs, what are we doing? Like, we have to beat, to kind of quotes a pitcher from the Mets, the shitty Pirates. And if we can't do that, what are we doing trying to get a spot in the playoffs? So like, I don't take what David Ross said. I mean, I'm sure the players on the Pirates are going to take it a certain way as Brian Reynolds did and whatnot, and fans. But like, honestly, he needs to send that message to the Cubs. This team is bad, and you sucked and lost to them. You're going to play for playoffs? You can't beat the Pirates. So that's just my take.
So going into a little bit of the other pitchers we used tonight, Jose Hernandez, I don't know. I felt that he didn't pitch. It's a little like Ortiz. I don't think he pitched badly. I mean, he just got really, really squeezed on that zone. There was a really bad non-strike call against him tonight. Hunter Stratton, I don't know why he's here, really. I don't know who's worse, him or Selby. I mean, obviously by the numbers, it's Selby, but
Well, yeah.
there's
By the
there's
numbers, it doesn't get much worse.
by the numbers, it
Well,
doesn't get much worse. But I don't.
Mr.
Hatch was
Nicholas.
bad, but I don't understand why they optioned Hatch and kept Stratton around and Selby. Because when Stratton comes in, it's just he has almost the same command issues as Selby does, but not the stuff.
Yeah, I
So
guess I
it
see
is.
that viewpoint. On that same sense, I kind of look at it as, I mean, they're all interchangeable for the most part. Hatch is meh. Like, I don't care to see him on this team. So if it's Hunter Stratton to get his opportunity and get his taste in the majors and see a little bit from him, whatever. Like, it's
Yeah.
all just meh.
It's
they're all
also
interchangeable.
it's also a big reason why I don't really fault anybody on the field for Stratton being in this game in this position.
Yeah.
And
And like
same with Selby. There's like, if you have them on the roster, you have to use them.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And especially when you have 4.2 innings out of your first two pitchers from this game, you need bullpen arms. But yeah, like the one thing too, like he's gotten results. Like I don't really look at Hunter Stratton and say, "Ooh, good reliever," like Majinski. We'll talk about. It's whatever. But let's talk about
He's a
Majinski
guy.
because
Well,
Majinski
I wanted
is
to
a
touch on
dude.
Hernandez a little bit before.
Oh,
It's
okay.
just a brief thing. The velocity is pretty down with him. He hit 95 tonight, but he was mostly sitting 93, 94 again.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. He's pitched more innings than he ever has, right? And I know well, he's a reliever. How could he be tired? It's those rest days that starters get are important. He hasn't pitched more innings than he ever has. He's pitched more innings than he has since he was a rookie, since he was in rookie ball. Sorry. And that was when he was working as a starter and got, I think, 14 starts in rookie ball. But the velocity is down, and I think it has to do with just the workload that he's been given because, you're not, as a reliever, you're not going 5 days in between your appearances. It's still a grind. Even for relievers, it's a grind. Even though the innings are a lot smaller, it's still.
Well, and you're going max effort too, like every time.
Right. That's the other thing that you need to take into account there.
Yeah, I kind of look at him. I mean, it's been disappointing to see that how it's ended up, right? But he's a Rule 5 draft pick, and I don't think he should be handed anything, going to next year. But I feel like I've seen enough of him for the majority of the season to say I'm still intrigued. Maybe he's wearing down. Maybe it's something else right now. It is the end of the season where it's all happening. Like I feel like if this was at the beginning or the middle of the season, there'd be more concern. But it's at the end of the season. All things you said are true. I'm still intrigued, if we'll say that word, by Jose Hernandez.
If he comes into camp and he has the velocity again, I think he's a solid bet to make the bullpen. I think he is, because the way that he was pitching earlier in the year when he had all of his stuff, it was pretty good.
Yep.
As good as you can expect from a Rule 5 player. You can't expect a Rule 5 relief pitcher to do much better than he has this year.
Correct. So let's talk about Carmen.
Oh, dude,
Carmen Majinski is just, I don't know if nasty is the right word, but he's good. He's good. He's finding a role, and he now has his 9th hold, a 1.93 ERA. Dude just finds a way to get it done.
Yeah, he does. I don't know what to say. He's been really good. Obviously reliever variability, you can't count on anybody to be the same next year, but boy, does he look like a good option. Yes. I'd say sub 2 ERA plays.
It does. I've heard.
Intrigued.
I'm more than intrigued. No, this is past intrigued. Like Carmen Majinski, I'm not sure if I can say he's a dude yet. Also, just a reliever in this sense, but I like what I see. Another thing, and something especially I've harped on, is like to to cheat yourself to being a better team than what you should is having a good bullpen. If you can have a really good bullpen, you can be a good team. And you're starting to see that right now.
Well, look at the Brewers' offense, right? The Brewers' offense is pitiful. They've gotten to where they've gotten to the playoffs from just having all this good pitching. They literally have not lost a game by more than 3 runs in September.
Yeah. I mean, they have
I'm not
good
even
starting
sure if
pitching
they've
too.
I'm not even
but-
sure if they've lost a game by 3 runs.
Good call. And I always go back to the Orioles also. Like last year, I mean, the Orioles were young, right? Like you would like to see maybe the 2024 Pirates be somewhat like the 2022 Orioles. And they did it. They had a really, really good bullpen, and they still do. It carried over, right? And they're one of the best teams in baseball. So, you are starting to see, like, not even have to really, really squint, but you're starting to see a very capable bullpen that could come in 2024. I don't know if there's a ton of depth. Like that's what this team's going to have to look into because, they are arms, there are bullpen arms.
The answer to how much depth you need is always one more with arms.
Well, yes.
Because that was all the talk coming into this year was that all the starting pitching depth they had, and look at how that worked out. You always need one more.
Yep.
Always, always, always. And on the flip side of that, the Cardinals have an awful bullpen. They have like 27 blown saves last I checked.
Good.
Their offense is pretty good. They're not winning games that they should because their bullpen is blowing so many games. And David Bednar, as shaky as he has looked at times, leads the league in saves since the All-Star break. He has 20 saves.
To touch on that a little bit, I don't know if worried is the right word. He looked, I mean, he was very off again today. But it's just one of those things with
how many pitches did he throw last night?
I don't recall. Actually, I didn't watch the game at all last night. So there's that. But I can tell you tonight he threw 20. And 19 of them were probably balls.
Yeah, that's like 50 pitches he's thrown in the last 2 days.
There you go. Okay, so that's but still, this isn't the first time where he's been shaky. But what I'm alluding to is he's pretty much gone out of it every single time. Like
as long as
I don't know how sustainable it is, but
as long as he's finding ways, I'm not gonna complain.
That's what I'm saying. Like we talked about with Majinski, like he finds a way he's good and he finds a way to be good. And when David Bednar's off, he still finds a way, and he did it today. I mean, he was all over the place, but he made it happen. No runs, and now his ERA is down to let me get it up here.
Is it over 2 because the 2-run homer he gave up last night?
It's a 2.08 right now.
2.08. Okay.
So that's very good numbers. 37 saves, 2.08 ERA.
Yeah, I don't know. He finds ways to get results.
Yeah, can't hate on that. But anyways, so that's pretty much all the pitching. I mentioned, there was the 3 big home runs that helped. Pirates did have 9 hits in total, 7 walks, 15 strikeouts. Yes, I know most of that because Henry Davis is bad when he's not really, really good. But Jared Triolo, let's finish up on him. I love me some Jared Triolo.
I want to touch on Peguero first because he had a really rough day at the plate.
Well,
one walk,
rough day everywhere.
1 walk, 0 for 4, 4 strikeouts, golden sombrero. Just a really. I mean, we mentioned earlier that he's kind of fallen off a cliff here, but I think tonight was the worst game he's had pretty much all year.
Could be.
Yeah, it could be. I'd have to look at that, but it's up there.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, because you tie that in with the defense, and again, even though there's no errors that are in the box score by him, wasn't the best defensive game either, bad game at the plate. So it was just a really, really bad game for Peguero, unfortunately.
Yeah. Jared Triolo, though. Why did they send this guy down again?
I don't know. Connor, I don't know.
I don't know. I even wrote an article about it saying basically that I didn't know.
He was playing good at that time.
He was playing good at the time. He was hitting 270 and getting on base like 350.
Yeah, like his best baseball came at his demotion. I don't understand that. How do
He
you get
had
demoted
like
when you're playing at your best?
0.7 B WAR in like 36 games, and he was demoted for G1 Bay, who had negative WAR at that time.
And he kept hitting in AAA. He got his promotion back up to the majors. And honestly, he's been doing like what I find awesome now, right? He's back in the majors is not that he's continuing to hit, but is there some power there, Connor? He hit another home run tonight. Like he's showing a little bit of power right now, too.
There's certainly more raw that has showed up in his, game lines as a player. That said, I don't think there's, we're not talking about O'Neal Cruz raw. We're not talking about
No.
Brian Hayes raw. It's, the 99th percentile outcome for Triolo over a full season is like 10 home runs, right?
But that's what I'm getting to.
He's more of a doubles
This
guy.
was a singles machine.
Right.
And now we're talking maybe it's a guy who can get double-digit home runs, which like his frame support, like he should. Like you look at him, he should be able to hit double-digit home runs, right? Like this isn't just like some 5'8", 160-pound. This isn't Billy Hamilton at the plate. Put it that way.
Right.
Like he's 6'3", 212. He should be able to hit some power. And he's showing it right now. Now, again, he had the hamate injury. Maybe that's sapped a little bit. Maybe it's starting to come back. I'm not expecting we're not talking Cruz, but he gets on base. He makes good bat-to-ball skills. Like he makes contact. If he can find a little bit of pop there, I mean, he is a league average hitter now. If you're getting that from your utility guy and he plays well enough defense to be a utility guy, Jared Triolo,
great pick at first tonight, which I mean should be expected from a guy who's basically the second best defender at any position in the organization, second only to Brian Hayes. The only problem is he plays the same position.
Which, by the way, to rewind a tad, so we're not trading Brian Hayes to have Jared Triolo third anymore, right?
We're not.
That's gone. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's gone.
I'm glad that's gone now.
It was ridiculous then, and it's ridiculous now.
Yeah.
It's even
if
more
you're on board that
now.
train, you look like an idiot.
Yeah. So, I mean, but the thing is, he's just so skilled defensively that it really translates to a couple different positions in the infield. So he can keep Brian Hayes a day off at third. And I don't think you're really worried about any of the glove. You're obviously nobody is Brian Hayes, but you're not worried about like your third baseman costing you the game with an error if Triolo's there. That's not your concern.
Right.
And he's so skilled there that it translates to second and it really translates to first. I don't doubt that in an emergency situation, he could probably play an adequate shortstop.
I want to see it.
I kind of do also, but it's just like the problem is you got to get Peguero reps and you have Alika there. So, there's kind of, if you're treating these games like playoff games, you're not going to do it. Right.
That's fair. And if they are right, you're not, but it is something like for Jared Triolo to be at his best, he's going to have to be a multi-position. My biggest comp is the lesser athletic Jay Hay. Jay Hay found a spot because he could play every position, right? Like Jared Triolo needs to be that guy.
He's also played outfield a little bit
with the bat.
I think he played center field in the minors a little bit, like a couple of games. From what I remember, he really was uncomfortable there. But I mean, if that was something that he could work more on, and maybe, I don't doubt that, he could become a corner guy. If he could add corner outfield to his repertoire, then he's literally just the defensive positions that Jay Hay played, which was third base, second base, corner outfield, and first. Not that that's very useful if you have a good first baseman, but
the fact that you could do it. So I think that's what's going to bring a lot of value to Jared Triolo.
Right.
If he can be a below average hitter and be able to play all his defenses, that's a big W. That means a lot. That frees up a lot of roster spots.
It does.
You can have a Palacios on the bench if you have a Jared Triolo who's a league average hitter.
Well, that's the problem going into this offseason, man. It's how do you manage all these players that are showing you something towards the end of the season, the Josh Palacios, the Miguel Andahars, and the Jared Triolo, you know, Kenny, I think Jared Triolo is probably in like a different class than those guys, but I think he could still maybe be beat out for a roster spot next year, right? And it's just, how do you manage that? Because there are only so many bench spots, and one of those is going to a backup catcher.
Yep.
And that's not going to be Henry Davis.
Probably not.
No.
But at any rate, let's go ahead and wrap this up here. Good game. Again,
Good game.
I want to see more Triolo. I want to see more of all these guys, but they're playing good baseball. So they take the first game of the series with the Reds. 2 more to come. Good stuff.
Good stuff.
This team is very enjoyable right now. That's really all can ask for at the end of September.
I really wanted Palacios to come up there in the 9th. I really needed Endy to get on.
There's no need. They're up. Now, if they were down, he was coming up in his hitting home run. Guaranteed.
I know he didn't get in this game, but man, that is some kind of. I think Alex Stumpf mentioned this, that he's hit like 5 Drew Sutton home runs this year.
Yeah. Basically.
He's basically. I mean, you bring up any of the, the pinch hitter extraordinaires that the Pirates have had over the years. The Matt Joyce had a year, I think. Just he's up there, man.
Yep. So let's see if hopefully they don't need him tomorrow because they're winning the entire time. But if so be it. He'll come to the plate. They'll win anyways. But let's go ahead and get out of here. Appreciate everyone for watching, of course, or listening if it's the podcast. But I'll say this: if you're just listening, tune into our YouTube page and watch us as well.
Well, then I have to see your dumb face.
Well, that sees Jim's stupid face here in a second.
Jim's stupid face and his terrible tan lines.
But no, for real, appreciate everyone for watching. We'll be back again tomorrow, of course, after the game. I think it's myself and Neil. So we'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Peace.
Hey, you all. Thank you for watching. I know we try to provide the most entertaining content that we can, and we'd love to spread it to as many people as possible. So I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but if you could take the 5 seconds to like this video and subscribe to the page, it helps out so much more than you know. Thank you, and let's go Bucks.